Okay, well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Monday, July 20th, 2015 City Council meeting. At this time, I will call the meeting to order, and we will have or do the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, at this time, Shelley, you want to do roll call for us?
Albertson.
Here.
Bueller.
Here.
Danforth.
Here.
Manti.
Here.
Riefenberger.
Here.
Roby is absent. Solom.
Here.
Thorson.
Here.
Tupper.
Here.
Philhauer.
Here.
Thank you.
I almost said here. Yeah, one of those deals. Don is in the Black Hills right now, so he will be gone this evening. Okay, at this time, I will look for an approval of the consent agenda. I need a motion and a second. Motion by Randy, second by Beth. Any questions, discussion, changes, additions? Hearing none, I'll look for council action. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Number 2, approval of the agenda. I will need a motion and a second for discussion. Motion by Bruce. Second by Mike. Any questions, any changes? Hearing none, I'll look for council action. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Number 3, appointments to the city boards and commissions. I would like a motion and a second for discussion on this.
So moved.
Motion by John, second by Glenn. You guys, did you see the all the commissions and the boards that are put on there? You want to put that up, Ray, quick? Okay, you can just kind of look through it there real quick. I know all of you had a chance to see that. I tell you what, we are really blessed in this community that people want to get involved with these type of things. Of course, there's no dollars involved for them to get paid or anything like that. So we're just very, very fortunate that folks want to do this. There will be a couple more at the next council meeting that we'll be adding on to this also. So if there's no questions on this, I will look for council action. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Number 4, approval of the council committee assignments. Every one of you did get a chance to look at this, I hope. We have the council boards and commissions. Some of them have changed, some of them have not. Of course, we have 2 new council members, and they're going to be added on to some of these things. And then also I want to say it's important that when you come back from some of these meetings and you come to the council meeting, when we ask for liaison reports, that just tell us what's going on in these different areas, because you guys are the ones that have to tell the rest of the council what's happening. So I will look for a motion and a second for discussion on this. Motion by Randy, second by Beth. Any questions? No questions? Hearing none, I'll look for council action. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Number 5, application for a new on-off sale malt beverage license and a new South Dakota farm wine license to Watertown Confectionery, Inc., doing business as Ghost Town Winery at 1329 9th Street Southeast. At this time, I will open the public hearing if there's anyone that wants to speak in favor of or against this. Hearing none, I will close the public hearing. I will look for a motion and a second for discussion. Motion by Mike, second by Bruce. Any questions on this? I don't know if you're all familiar with this. This is over there on Highway 212 where the Hy-Vee liquor store is. They're going to open another store there just to sell their wines. Be kind of fun. So that's what they're doing. So there will be they will actually hold 2 licenses.
So this will be a retail-only license, correct?
That
And it
is
won't be a wholesale where they'll be selling to
No,
others?
this
It'll
is
be-
just retail.
Okay.
Yep, this retail.
And you say just for their wine, or is it gonna be all malt?
You know, I think this is just for their wine, if I'm not mistaken. It allows them to sell wine,
Yeah.
so they could probably add other South Dakota wines in there.
Yep.
Yeah. Do we have a motion, a second on that? Okay, any other discussion? Hearing none, I'll look for council action. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Number 6, second reading of ordinance number 1519, amending chapter 2190, defining a banner within for the city of Watertown. At this time, I will open the public hearing if there's anybody who wants to speak in favor of or against this. Hearing none, I will close the public hearing. I'll look for a motion and a second for discussion. Motion by Dan, second by John. Is there any questions on this? Hearing none, I'll look for council action. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Number 7, first reading of ordinance number 1521, amending section 3.01093, regulating the keeping of animals other than dogs within and for the city of Watertown. As you know, this is a first reading. Normally, we don't go through a lot of discussion, but I will let the council ask any questions if they wanted to at this time.
I've got a question on the effective date. First, it says, take effect immediately upon passage on August 3rd, and then further on down, it says effective August 28th.
I would think so, because it will be set up so that this takes effect the night of the council meeting.
Okay.
Just,
Yeah, first reading tonight, second reading on the 3rd, but it should take effect immediately. Yeah, so Stan, if there's a 28th on there, you'll have to change that.
Yeah, the version that I printed out from my computer doesn't have the 28th on it, so there must be a version that we need to take a look at. Glenn, thanks for pointing it out.
I do have a number of questions. I've never looked at this before now, but I haven't looked at it, well, before this action of making this change. When we talk about animals, is the definition of an animal, it's any live creature? Is that correct, or would it include reptiles? Would it?
No.
Or is that those?
No, because I think there's a lot of folks that have reptiles that are in their house and they've got them in their little cages.
So
I
the
think what-
definition of an animal is a mammal?
Yeah, you know, you're talking something that's fur bearing. You know, Mike, when they can put a little harness on a skunk or something and walk around the block, I don't foresee that with the reptiles.
Our code, Mike, defines animal as any mammal, bird, reptile, amphibian, or fish except humans.
And just to give you, just to give you a little background, Mike, on the way the Animal Control Board has operated, I've been on for 18, since Mayor Barber was, appointed me. We don't look at those animals, the ones that are always in the house or in an aquarium or things like that. This is a public safety issue, so we look at animals that are out and about and running around and if it was somebody like you were talking about who had maybe 6 or 7 snakes and 500 rats to feed the 6 or 7 snakes, and that would probably become a public nuisance issue, and the police department would probably step in on that. And they're also the animal control entity, so.
So, I mean, if I had rattlesnakes, that's okay? Because I know somebody just got bit by a rattlesnake somewhere in this country, and so now, I mean, are those types of things not? The reason why this whole thing has brought up a lot of questions, obviously, over the latest incident. So as the questions come up and people say, well, does it include this or this? And I have no idea.
Right.
That's why I'm asking these questions.
Yeah, I would say that for, as long as you keep your rattlesnake in your house, in your cage, and you don't bring it outside on a leash, like Steve said, so that it can bite somebody, I think you're fine. I mean, I think we're really looking at animals that can come into contact with the public is really what it comes down to in a broader sense. I mean, obviously you could go to your friend's house and you could say, hey, look at my cool rattlesnake and bring it out and show you. But typically, those do not become problematic unless they're released or, some of those kind of things. But there is still control over them. If they become a nuisance or a problem in any way, shape, or form, they can be dealt with through the code. Am I correct, Stanton?
When we talk about do we have a definition of what a predator is? I mean, we list 3, but do we have a definition of what a predator is?
I,
I think I read that it's any animal that preys on another animal. And I don't know if we put predators, if that would include reptiles that would prey on other animals.
I think it's pretty well covered when you read it. It says keeping or harboring of predators, including but not limited to.
yeah, that was what I was gonna point out too. We have pretty broad, that gives us a pretty broad space. And I want to clarify for people too, that this is not a change in procedure in any way. This is simply a change, it's a housekeeping issue. We've never issued these permits, so the revision actually, it reflects practice, is what it is. It absolutely reflects practice. So rather than have this in here that, you know, by special permission, you are not going to ever get special permission. So why not just say, period, prohibited? And that's what this is. This is just cleaning up the language. Stanton, I don't know how old this part of the ordinance is, but we've run into some that have been 10 or 20 or more years old. So back then, maybe they didn't know as much as they did about, maybe people had skunks on a leash, I'm not sure. But anyway,
I remember growing up, there was a neighbor right over by a school that had 2 skunks. Played out in their yard all the time. They were descended, and one ended up biting somebody, and they did have to destroy the animals. But I have a friend that's had 2 raccoons. They recently got rid of their second raccoon. We discussed it a little bit the other day. He said, if you want me to come up to City Hall and talk to you guys when you have your final meeting on that, he said, I'll give you all kinds of reasons not to have them. So
I could, that's supported by just about every agency. Thing on that, but right out, so.
All right, here's a question that was asked to me. Under no condition would a person be able to have, and I'm going to use a raccoon as an example, that they could effectively have a raccoon? So
Under
if
no-
you bought one from it's never been in the wild, it's gone through a breeding process, which, you know, it certifies it's never been wild, it's from birth has shots, all those things. Under a scenario like that,
No.
there's still no
No. The
scenario in which we would agree that that was an acceptable pet.
Right, no, that would not be an acceptable pet. According to the problem is that there is no known effective vaccination for a wild animal. So you could give them 20 rabies shots, and the CDC, the Department of Health, and the State Veterinary Board would all still consider them an unvaccinated animal, whether they were found in the wild or brought from a breeding facility. It varies from state to state, and municipal code always kind of trumps that. You know, if we say we can't have one. The state of South Dakota, outside of municipalities, allows you to have one, as long as the municipality doesn't disagree with it. But because there is no effective vaccine, and that there is no antemortem testing, there's nothing that they can pick up in a blood test of the virus, it can only be done after the animal is humanely euthanized. There's no effective blood test that's sensitive enough to pick it up before the animal is deceased. So, and you and I both talked about it, raccoons are probably one of the worst offenders in terms of being a reservoir of rabies vaccine. They can keep the live saliva in their, the live virus in their saliva for up to 6 months before showing any signs of having the disease, which means a baby raccoon could have been exposed by its mother, come into town, be played with by 10 or 15 people, and 6 months from show signs of rabies, and then you'd have a whole bunch of people who would be having a lot of shots.
I know that Beth is not a veterinarian, but I think you've been on the Animal Control Board for a long time, longer than 10, 12, 14 years. How long has it been?
I was appointed in Brenda's first term of office, so,
Which is a long time ago.
yeah.
Okay.
Well, and I just want to make a comment. I know most of the individuals that make up the Animal Control Board, and those people are not on there because they dislike animals. They're on there because they care about animals, and they actually help watch out for the rights of the animals and the care of those animals. So it's not a matter of of not wanting these animals. It's not a matter of wanting to have them when they are found, to have them taken care of and euthanized or whatever the term may be. It's contrary to that. I will also say that you don't deal in a manner that is emotion. You deal in a matter of fact.
Exactly. And-
Whereas the public has a tendency to deal with emotion, as obviously has taken precedence in this last event that we've had. So I commend you guys for the work that you guys did. It's not easy. There's a lot of unfortunate things that occurred. If you go right back to the rules and start from day one, though, none of this would have occurred. And you are correct. This is a housekeeping issue.
It
at
is
this
a
point.
housekeeping issue, and the bottom line is that you're right. It was, if the rules had been followed, there would have been no problem. So,
Okay.
I have a quick
So-
question on the ordinance also. I would argue that reptiles could be an issue. I don't know. Would we consider, it would seem some reptiles will be predators.
well,
Do we
that's,
need to write something into the ordinance that says you can have
No.
reptiles or?
no, because we use dogs as a generalized term for pet. Because you notice it doesn't say keeping of animals other than dogs, pets, tame ferrets, and, I mean, there are a lot of animals that are allowed, and we talked about that a little bit in Stan's, you
Well-
could probably explain it better than I could, that's just what it is.
Why don't we just call it keeping of animals? Why do we put other than dogs even in there?
I guess, Glenn, that title appears a couple of places in the code, and rather than change it in all the places, like the mayor said, this ordinance has been around probably since the Reagan administration, if not longer, and we just didn't, the title really doesn't really mean anything. It's what the actual language of the ordinance is. So that's the reason that we didn't make a change to the title, because it's been there probably since its inception.
Right. I always tell people we didn't know cigarettes were gonna kill us either when we first started smoking, so when they put it in here for raccoons, probably didn't know the same thing, so. Appreciate all the support on the council, by the way.
Okay, let's move on. We will go to number 8, consideration of change order number 1 to the contract with Gray Construction for the wastewater alkalinity feed addition project, increasing the contract amount by $21,915. Shane, if you want to take that for us?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor and City Council. Ray, you want to put my screen up on the board there? Okay, this change order essentially involves, here's one of the buildings out at the wastewater plant, and then this other round structure is where some of the work is happening between those two. And there was a couple of 6-inch sludge lines that were not incorrectly shown on the plans because the as-built from the previous project that installed them were not drawn correctly. So this was an unavoidable change to the contract, and basically it required the contractor to relocate those two 6-inch sludge lines, and the resulting change order is what you have in front of you. And the only thing I will say is the sheet that I handed out to everybody's individual station is the only items that have changed from what's in your packet, and really it doesn't change any of the parameters of the proposed change order. But anyway, I've visited with wastewater staff. They're supportive of this work, and it was really necessary to complete their project. So they have a budget that can afford this change and increase, so we're recommending approval of the change order.
Okay, thanks, Shane. What I'll do now is I'll look for a motion and a second for discussion.
So moved.
Motion by Bill, second by Dan. Is there any questions you have for Shane on this?
The only question I've had, and I know in the past, when they were building out there, we ran into the same thing where they had a large expense, and you weren't here, so you're probably not up to speed on that, but they had a large expense because a bunch of other underground things that aren't mapped, and Mike's not here, but I'm curious, are we getting a handle on that, or apparently there's a lot of stuff been buried out there that's not plotted or mapped anyplace, that they keep having this issue. And if you remember when they did the major project, they had quite a big upgrade in cost because of hitting a bunch of stuff that they didn't know was there.
Yeah, I think they do have a handle on it now, Bill. I know that it was very expensive, and it was all that was unforeseen that was under there. So I think it's a good thing. We should be able to get finished up on this and get it wrapped up.
I do have one other comment. There will be 2 other change orders coming forward related to this specific item. They're just not quite ready for processing at this time. One will be there was some rubble debris that was also encountered in that trench area to get rid of. That's a very minor dollar amount, but the change order hasn't been processed. And also because of the rerouting, we're going to have some additional asphalt paving that we're going to do. But both of them are much smaller than this change order that's before you. So I think the total amount between the 3 of them is around $33,000 or something like that. But you'll see those coming at a future council meeting.
Okay, any other questions for Shane? Hearing none, I will look for council action. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Number 9, approval of insurance policies and authorized payment of premiums for general liability, public officials liability, auto liability, and physical damage, law enforcement liability, buildings and contents, equipment, property damage, and equipment breakdown, boilers, and machinery coverage. This, Shelley, if you want to take that, if there's anything you want to, this is kind of a normal housekeeping thing we have to go through every year.
Yep, we do definitely need insurance. This is the second full year that we've had the South Dakota Public Assurance Alliance provide the majority of our insurance coverage. There are a few things that are excluded, and we go elsewhere for those. The total that you can see is $457,974.03. We do share that cost with the utilities since they are considered a city entity. The portion that we're asking approval to pay tonight is $297,451.76. That's our share, which is about 65% of the total bill. So if anybody has any questions, I'll stop talking now with my no
I think
voice.
what I'll do at this time, I'll look for a motion, a second for discussion.
So moved.
Motion by Randy, second by Glenn. Is there any questions that we have for Shelley?
Just-
How,
Go ahead, Glenn.
how does this compare with this past year?
We actually had about a 1% overall decrease from the premium last year. I sat for a couple hours just trying to figure out why that was. Couple different things. We did some minor changes on our auto coverage, increasing some of the deductibles. We removed some of the older vehicles to just having basic coverage. Also, they changed the way that they took it all in-house. They used to have Hagen Benefits do the actuary part of it, and they've now taken that in-house. And I think they are using a little bit different means of coming up with premiums. The other thing that they've been able to do is actually put a premium to a specific building. We've never had that type of breakdown before. So I think the way that they're doing that has actually come into a decrease as well. Just a very small $4,800 decrease, but it's actually was in our favor. So.
Okay, any other questions?
I do have one for Shelley. It's got the breakdown of different vehicles. It shows we have 8 motorcycles.
Are you looking at the second page?
I'm looking at, automobile liability breakdown.
I'm guessing that's going to include, something other than motorcycles.
Because ATVs are right below that with only one. I know we probably,
Yeah.
city probably owns more than one
Yeah.
ATV with
I-
the Park and Rec Department, but.
Yeah, we don't own 8 motorcycles, so there must be something else in that category that would be a 2-wheeled something or other.
Okay.
Shelley, out of curiosity, what would be our deductible for boilers and machinery? Do we know what that is?
That's just like property. That would be a $10,000 deductible per event. That would involve a boiler.
And am I seeing that correctly? Our premium's $13,000?
Correct. That's also based on property valuation and the number of boilers that we have throughout the city.
You know, I'm not sure where all the boilers are. We've got one here, we've got one at the auditorium, and we have one at the field house.
Pool, I think the pool has 4 or 6 of them.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Rec center, fire department might. We have quite a few of them. Library. Correct. The utilities has some as well.
Okay, any other questions for Shelley? She's struggling with her voice tonight, just a tad, but you did really well. At this time, I will look for council action. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, Shelley. Number 10, authorization for the mayor to sign addendum to the memorandum of understanding between the city of Watertown and Cottington County. And Stanton, if you'll handle that for us.
Thank you, Mayor. Since 2001, 2002, the city, county, and Sisseton, Oyate have had a 3-party agreement where the city and county, the city provides fire and ambulance services, and the county provides snow removal, road maintenance, and they provide law enforcement services to Dakota Sioux Casino. For those services, payment is made by the Sisseton, Oyate to the county, which the city and the county then divide up, and for 2015 and 14, 15, and 16, that payment amount is $150,000. And so the memorandum of understanding that's before you shows the breakdown for the remaining 2 years of at that payment rate. In 2017 and 18, that payment will increase to $225,000, and then from 2019 through 2022, that payment amount will be $300,000. So the memorandum of understanding that's before you tonight only breaks down those remaining 2 years at $150,000, thinking that when the payment increases to $225,000, the parties might want to sit down and discuss maybe further how the breakdown goes in terms of the funding. But that breakdown is consistent with the breakdown that you are having the current that you had for 2014. It just carries it through the remainder of the last 2 years at that payment rate.
Okay, at this time, what I'll look for is a motion and a second for approval on this for discussion. Motion by Beth. Second by Mike. Any questions you have for Stanton? Hearing none, I will look for council action. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Number 11, authorization for the mayor to sign grant agreement from the Department of Health for the mosquito control program in the amount of $7,635. And what I'll do is I'll ask Jay to come on up, and he can kind of give us a little information on this.
Meetings ago, I appeared before the council requesting authority to apply for a mosquito control grant through the Department of Health. We applied for that grant, and we originally applied for $14,450. Well, we received $7,635 of that. So if you do approve the grant application, that will not cover all the costs of the equipment that we wish to buy, so there will need to be an additional appropriation that's not currently budgeted for that. What we're going to use this for, along with wastewater, we're going to use that for a new adult deciding fogger, the complete unit. The one current unit is 13 years old, and it would be really nice to have 2 up-to-date pieces of equipment.
What I'll do is I'll look for a motion and a second for discussion, and then you can ask Jay some questions. Motion by John, second by Randy. Any questions for Jay? I think the one question that they probably have is additional dollars that are needed. What would that be for this piece of equipment?
Well, I talked with Craig over at Wastewater, and, we originally asked for $14,450, but he thought we could purchase the equipment for about $13,000, so that would be an additional $5,365 roughly.
Jake, if we accept this, does it have to be spent in fiscal year 2015?
Yes, I
Or
think-
could we take it kind of bank it and then put the balance in 2016.
What does, I'll ask Shelley the question, what does the grant say? How much time do we have to?
While she's looking, is the equipment needed like now, or is it something that can be put to next season?
Well, it would be nice to get it now. What Mike and Craig have told me at wastewater is that, there are times where, and we're kind of coming into that time right now where the mosquito populations get pretty heavy, and that we even need to borrow another unit from the county at times. So this would give us 2 complete good units, and then having the 1 unit we use now basically as a spare.
It says here that the grantee's project period begins July 1 of 2015 and ends June 30, 2016.
So they could use it in 16.
Correct. It has to be purchased and asked for reimbursement prior to June 30th of 2016.
Jay, what's lead time on the equipment?
I don't think it would be, I'd have to ask Craig, but I don't think that would take very long to get the equipment.
It's not a big deal. I think you can just go ahead and get it bought.
It's not a big amount of money.
No, I think we do have a motion and a second on the floor.
Can I just,
Sure.
for that extra money, you've got really 2 choices because it wasn't in the original budget. So you can approve this grant if you're going to get it this year and have a contingency transfer to increase the budget. You could just basically do a supplement to this budget, and that means that fund balance will be taken out. Or you can ask that they stay within their budget, and they would just have to buy less chemicals, spray potentially less to stay within that money. So whoever made the motion in the second, John, just what would your recommendation be for that?
Be hard to spray less when you're getting more
Yeah,
machines.
you don't want to spray less.
We don't want to spray less.
So just do a contingency
Contin-
transfer.
Yeah, with contingency transfer. Yep.
So John changed his motion, and Randy will second that. Any other questions?
While Jay's there, I had a quick question for you, Jay. What do we monitor at all the effect we're really having by the spraying? Do you use the traps? Do you audit those from time to time to see where we're at?
Well, that's actually what triggers the spraying program. They monitor the traps regularly, and if, as the Vexins, hit that peak level, that's what triggers the spraying. And, it's been kind of fun to follow this season. Mike has told me that, it's the 80s Vexins, the smaller mosquitoes, that 100 actually triggers the traps for those. And he said early in the season, that's what will do it. But as you get into the summer, then it's the Culex species, the one that's most recognized with West Nile virus, is the one that trips the trigger. And that's exactly what's happened. We've been spraying the last couple of weeks now, and, it's been the Culex that have been triggering the traps.
And that's what big ones that look like a B-52 coming at you.
Exactly.
Okay, I thought so. I will tell you for effectiveness, Bruce, I can tell in my office by how many phone calls I get that it's working. Yeah, it does. Any questions on this, guys? Hearing none, I'll look for council action. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thanks, Jay. You ready to go on this next one? Number 12, consideration of bids for the Cattail Crossing Golf Course Improvement Project. And you can go ahead on that if you would, Jay.
Well, on Friday, the 17th, we opened the bids for the Cattail Crossing Improvement Project, and that improvement project, basic scope of the project was to redo the greens on the yellow course at Cattail Crossings, and we had 2 bidders, and the bids came in substantially higher than what we were budgeted for and what we were hoping for. So actually, the Park and Recreation Board met earlier this evening, and they had passed a motion to recommend rejection of the 2 bids from July 17th.
Okay, so what I will do tonight, I'm going to look for a motion and a second to reject these bids and then turn around and authorize the Park and Rec to go out for new bids. I think just one motion. So I have a motion by Mike second by Randy. Any questions on that part of it, if you guys have?
How far off of projection were they?
About 140 to
140.
160,000 in that range.
Looking through those, there were some things that really kind of caught my eye that were so much different between the bids.
Right.
And I mean, it just,
I think part of that though, Randy, when you look at the alternates, what we're really looking at tonight, what we're asking for is where you have the lump sum base bid, and you've got those two bidders, the Landscapes Unlimited and the, what is it, Dunick?
Dunick's, yeah.
Out of Princeburg, Minnesota. The alternates are what is really strange, and we would of course have the option of picking and choosing any of those alternates. But what we're really focusing on tonight is the base bid on this. There are some things that we probably will do differently rather than a pond, maybe it's just a swale or something to that effect. So, yeah. there
Some
was
changes in the irrigation.
Yes.
And also some more seeding rather than sodding will be
Right.
the three primary things.
And I would also let you know that we have a committee set up that works very closely with this, and I did appoint Mike as the committee chairman on this, so that this group of 6 people can work very closely with Mr., is it Norby? No?
Yes, Kevin Norby.
Kevin Norby, out of Sioux Falls to get this project in budget line.
what, are both these companies I'm sure they are, I'm sure you did research, very reputable firms? When I
Very
seen those big differences, that kind of draws a flag to me as far as reputation, so.
But they're both very reputable firms,
Okay.
and Kevin Norby shared with me today that they're both still very interested in the
Okay.
project, so they're gonna submit bids the way it sounds, plus probably an additional contractor, so that would be great.
Yep.
Jay, what would that do time-wise out there? It's getting, I don't suppose it's late, but at one time we were thinking August 1st was the starting date, and now all of a sudden rebidding would take 2 weeks, and, I mean, is this, in essence, putting this off a year, or what?
No, not at all. Hopefully, we can come back to you on the 3rd of August, at the council meeting on the 3rd of August, and have some real favorable bids. And I think they're going to mobilize very, very quickly once contract is awarded, and they plan to get right to work. And, it'll set us back a couple weeks, and probably with seeding as compared to some of the sodding, it'll take a little longer next spring. But overall, everybody, Todd and both Kevin Norby, the architect, feel that we're in good shape.
I would agree with that, and on that, we have the bid tab going in the paper on Wednesday, and once that's printed, I think we have 10 days from that point in time, which is when they have to have their bids in. That ends up to being like the 1st, which is a Saturday, 2nd Sunday, 3rd is Monday, our council meeting. They will have a special meeting with the Park and Rec Board, whether they accept any of those bids or not, and then we will look at whatever the recommendation is on that evening. Does that work for everybody?
So the only thing that's gonna really put us back is if we don't get favorable bids in the next.
That is correct. And then if that happens at that particular time, then it will be pushed out a year.
I'm pretty confident in between the work session and this council meeting. I spent about 15 minutes on the phone with Mr. Norby, and he echoed exactly, Jay, what you've said is the two are very eager to quote. They probably will have a third one, which is good for us. We focused a lot on two things, not the detail of it, but he's very confident we will get to or be very, very close to budget. And the second thing is we talked at length about what does this mean in regards to the timing of the project. And he's still very comfortable that we'll be able to do this. Probably the bigger issue that we're going to have is going to be Mother Nature. How's Mother Nature going to cooperate with us? More so because we think we'll do what we need to do to get it in the budget. So it's going to all come down to, I think it's going to come down to Mother Nature cooperating so that they can do their dirt work. So.
Okay, any other questions? I do have a motion and a second on the floor. I will look for council action at this time. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Jay.
Thank you.
Okay, is there any old business that you folks need to discuss? I do have a couple gentlemen in the audience, Rob and Jerry, if you guys want to come up and kind of share with us what you, on an H2O20 project? I know that you've both been here before.
We have,
Yes.
thank you.
All right.
Sorry
And-
we missed the working session
That's
earlier.
okay. This is fine.
It
If you
was a
just-
crazy day.
Oh, by the way, yeah, hold that up. I wanted to say congratulations today. It was very nice out there. Rob visiting with all the
Thank you.
all the people. Kirsty was out there, and it was an incredible announcement. I hope you all heard that Rob's business. I know I'm off on a tangent here. Rob's business is tripling in size, and it's exciting for Watertown. So congratulations.
Thank you very much.
And what I also heard, there was rumor going around out there at his business that this marina thing that they're gonna talk about tonight, he can now afford to do the whole thing, and we don't have to put any money into it. Is that what I heard, Rob?
I don't think so.
Maybe I was mistaken. I don't
You
know.
may have been. You
Okay.
may have been.
All right, go ahead.
All right, so with the H2O committee, we've been here before to talk about the marina project on Lake Kempesca. Dr. Eber's with me here tonight, and he's been working on this very diligently for a while, and we have some updates, and then we'd like to ask for where we would like to go from here. So, Jerry, if you've got...
Well, probably the biggest thing that's happened is, I believe all of you except the new members have gotten a copy of our proposal on what we think a marina should look like in Watertown, and that would be located at Jackson Park. Initially, when we first discussed this and brought it to the city council, there was a lot of discussion about dredging and the costs associated with that, and also the logistics associated with that. A lot more research has gone into it since then, and we've actually talked with Lake Area Tech and their new Heavy Equipment Operators Program Director, Steve Henningsgaard. And after sitting down and meeting with them and looking at the scope of the project, they're very interested in the possibility of using that as a project for their students, and something that would cut the cost of this significantly. It appears that this could all be dry land dug, and after watching the water pipe go in, aside from the rock issue, the ability to open up a channel or a canal directly into what would be a marina area is very feasible, and much less lower cost than what a dredge system would be. The use of the lake and the ability to protect people's property is very important, and in a lake the size of Kempesca, we noticed even this weekend with the storm that came through, people having property on the water and having it protected is very important, and I think a marina would be a excellent way to do that for people who have property in the city that want to store it at the lake and know that it's protected.
Jerry, do you need any special permits, like a 404 that the Corps gives out, or what kind of permits do you guys need to get moving, just to get that initial okay from the state or whoever it is?
I've met talked to several people in the Corps. I had actually one met me at the site, and we walked around and looked at the potential and what was there, and this is one of the directors, Tom Lowen, I believe is his name, that's involved in what the Corps would decide and permit, and his response to me was, this is a great location and use for this property. I thought the Corps would be our biggest stumbling block. The other people that have been involved, we talked to the Department of Natural Resources or Game and Fish. They really don't have any issue either way, just in talking with them. Of course, they all have to have permits or at least sign off on those. So the couple of the things that we looked at and that we need the city's support, and H2O20 can't sign on behalf of the city for anything to commission any type of permitting or studies. So what we're asking of the city is some help in moving forward on this project, and at least starting the permitting process and getting the permissions that are necessary, so that when the time comes, we can put some shovels in the ground.
I think what we found from talking to the school, LATI, and their willingness to use this as a project, the numbers that were thrown around, now this hasn't been quoted or anything like that by any means, but they're talking numbers that reflect 10% of going out to have this done professionally. So a 90% savings takes this potentially from $2 million project to $200,000 project. So at that time, you know, we felt it was worth bringing it back and saying, this is going to be a dollar amount that is going to be much more palatable to the city council and should be looked at as an opportunity to move forward with something that many people in the city are looking forward to having, but we would like to, like Jerry said, get some steam behind it so that we can get permitting started, because we feel that that will take a long time.
What type
Rob and-
of, go ahead, Mike.
Rob and Jerry, do you guys have anything visual that we could look at to see what you are anticipating, so we can see what that would entail?
Yeah, I've been in meetings all evening too. I didn't bring my stuff along. Most of the council, I believe, has gotten copies of this, and I emailed out stuff. The new members, I will get copies to you as soon as I can. Rob's got a thumb drive. That's awesome. But one of the other areas that we had talked about was, you know, when the airport, when they moved the airport fence from around the road that was adjacent to Jackson Park, closer to the airport, and made it basically a straight line to match the runway incursion zones. That opened up a lot of green space that still, from what I understand, has got some control by the Department of Defense and FAA. And so one of the things that I think the city should do is to petition the government to allow unrestricted use back to the city. And again, I don't know the details on how all of that works.
Yeah, I will tell you, it's not that difficult. Todd could do that for us quite easily, you know, whether they give us the okay or not, but it's not a big process to go through that.
But once that happens, that allows that space to be developed as part of the park and fill back into more development that I think is gonna benefit that area.
Has there been any of the engineering part of it done?
We've got initially the engineering side of that was done with the dredging, so we've got some dredging information, but it doesn't really, we weren't able to go any further with,
Yep.
With an engineering without knowing that this is a project that,
Yep.
that we needed to get going.
I guess that's kind of why I brought that up, so.
So if this is Jackson Park,
So if you look at the round area that Rob's circling, that actually it was dug and put in there as the waste area for the water treatment plant that they would use to backflush the filters into, and then that would sediment out, and they would, over periods of time, and I don't remember the last time it was actually dug out, but that round berm actually was created when they dig it out, and it's about an 8-foot elevation from the water level to the top, which is a great protective area, and that's kind of why as we're looking at this, we picked Jackson Park as the possibility, and the wetland area to the outside of it is.
well, and really close to here was the new irrigation pipe for the city golf course. And so we used that same digging study to find out about the soil and things like that. And that's what helped us learn that this could be dry ground dug without having to dredge it out and go out in the water.
So they've done the ground testing all the way through that area and know the depths and what kind of material that they're going to encounter when they're digging it out. This is just a concept of what, you know, when I drew it up, this is what I thought the marina should look like, and it's that's set up for 77 permanent boat slips and 15 day slips. The day slips are on the straight line, the permanents are on the edge. The area probably could hold up to 200 boats. And again, this is just after driving down to Storm Lake, Iowa, and looking at their marina, which is very similar to this in what they did. And
I guess at this time, we're not suggesting that we go hog wild with putting up, you know, big buildings and resorts or anything like that. We're just saying the first step would be dig it out, have an area for access, for public access to the lake, and see what happens from there. I think it would offer up a lot of commercial possibilities as well.
I can't recall, Rob, did you guys talk to Roger Foote about the phosphorus plant. I know they still use that a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm just not sure how much they do.
Roger's been involved since the beginning of this project, and we've talked with him, and he still, when he backflushes the filters, he needs a space to do that, but he doesn't need the space that's that size because of the scale of the project that they're doing. So a smaller area could be,
There's still
could
a
be
lot of this
identified.
wetland over here too.
And, you know, if he still needed part of that, it could be either partitioned off and used. It could be a different area could be used and not touch that at all. That's a matter of just locating it. But I think this site is probably the best opportunity around the lake, and using that space across the road, you know, gives us ample parking. We have the where was the other picture at? Oh, and all of this is just green space that I think could potentially be used. There are limitations on the height of any structures, but as long as you're outside of the runway incursion zones, which are in the yellow lines, this essentially becomes unrestricted area once the government signs off on it. The access to the golf course and I think is a lot of positive things for something that we could look at in the future to develop. And
I guess we were pretty excited about the fact that we found a way to cut so much of the cost out of this, so we wanted to bring it back for another round of thought process and say, hey, is this something that we should think about? Because if we don't start permitting this, which can take a very, very long time, we'll never get to there. So we'd like to at least start that process.
So you'd have this, you'd cut an opening from the lake into this area. The circular area, then I'm assuming would have some type of a wall system in it?
I can actually show you further down in this is the Storm Lake Marina that I went to as an example, and it's very similar in size, community, and what Storm Lake, Iowa has done. And, you know, with their marina, all of this, all the way around is a concrete driveway with a turnaround and riprap along the inside edge with a floating dock system out there. Is that a roundabout?
It is.
Yeah, it is. Isn't it great?
Roundabout for boats.
One of the things that was interesting is that I was talking to the manager here, and the fishing pier is full every day with people there because of the calm water. It's a great spawning area or place for fish that's protected, and when they dug theirs out to 16 feet, and they said the fishing in there is excellent. So.
Jerry, if we did this, if we do this project, and we dig out the marina area, is the intention then to take that fill and put it back where the wetland area is to the north? What do we do with that part, I guess?
You get into a sticky conversation when you talk to anybody about filling in wetlands. And so then, you know, the Corps, if you're removing or if you're filling in a wetland, they want you to replace. The request is a 2 or 3 to 1 area. So if you were to fill in a wetland, they would want you to dig one out. Well, one of the benefits of this is actually we're creating a better quality wetland by opening up that choked out cattail slough and opening up the area, because it's going to be a better quality wetland than what's currently there. They classify them into different grades. So having an open water area is improving the wetland in the Corps' mindset. There is some possibility then by doing that, if we're increasing the acreage, that we could potentially fill in some lowland areas or do something different with it, or use the fill in one of many other projects that are needing some fill right now. So.
Well, there isn't any water in it now, though, so it's really it's not an area that you can count as a breeding ground for fish and
Right.
reproduction for fish, because there's no inlet, it's just overflow.
Right.
So,
Tom's comment is there's no worse wetland than a choked out cattail slough, so
Yeah. And that's what it is.
Right.
So opening it up, I think, is an advantage from a permitting standpoint that it'll help get the project through.
You could take that soil and haul it somewhere else if you were doing another project like ball diamonds.
Shane, can you help with them to get the permitting process moving? So at least the permitting process is done, that doesn't actually in any way commit the council to do this project. But in order to get something moving, they would need some permitting. Can the engineering upstairs help them with this?
Yeah, we could help with submittals of permitting. I don't know that, once it leaves our desks, it's, the timeline's of course up to everybody else, but it sounds like they've pretty much done most of their research so that the information would be available to hopefully help expedite permits, because of course the thing that slows it up the most is if you have something that you don't have the right form completed correctly, will greatly impact that timeline.
You know, I would suggest that, I think we ought to do it. I think we ought to fund this, and I just want to thank you guys for all the work you've done on this so far. Jerry, you and I have had many discussions on this. Jerry, you've done a bang-up job of gathering information with really very little resources, and I think that this could be a great project for Watertown. I think we ought to do what's necessary to fund the permitting process as soon as possible.
Well, you guys have always heard me talk about that. We've kind of forgotten about Lake Compesca as being a recreational and a tourist type facility. I think this would really step it up. I mean, we all know what Spirit Lake and Okoboji and things like that are down there, and I think this would be a huge project for the city. So,
Well, just as a confirmation of that, when we did our study with Market Street on the H2O2O vision plan, their comment was, you have this huge resource here that you are not utilizing. And so that was one of the things in their report, that they wanted to see more utilization of our lake to help promote our city.
You took the words right out of my mouth.
Are there any costs that we're gonna need for this project to get the permitting, drawings, engineering, anything?
Well, I think there will be costs when we get beyond the permitting process that we need engineering. And I think at that particular time, that will come out of the H2O20 fund that we have available still for that engineering cost for this project.
Sure.
So I think, I believe you should go ahead and start working with Shane and get that going, get the process going. Yeah, we can do that. We can make a formal motion on that to allow you to go out for permitting process. And that'll be with the help of the engineering department.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, motion by John, second by Randy. Any more questions that you have for these guys? Hearing none, I'll look for council action. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks,
Thank you very
guys.
much.
Yeah,
Thank
we
you.
will look forward to this. Ed, if you wanna come on up, and I know that you had something that you must, I apologize. It is Ed, right?
Elwood.
I was darn close.
Yeah.
All right. I'm sorry.
No, that's
But if you'll state your whole name again, and then the floor is yours.
It's Elwood Ramsey, ELWOOD. And, excuse me, I might be a little late. I should have been here at the last meeting when some of the old members were here too, but I just wanted to come and thank the city council for, I live in 1901 12th Avenue Southwest, yes, over there in the Country View Estates, and there's some bad roads over there. And after 2 weeks ago, I made a second complaint and went to the city street department. And the next day, they were out there and fixed holes. Last year, I complained to the mayor, and he was going out for dinner out to Minerva's, and he stopped and he called my wife and said, yes, we have to do something. And it wasn't too long after that, they were taken care of. And I want to thank him for that. And I don't know, I'm coming to you folks because I don't know who to go to get the right place. And the only thing is, they're just patching them, and it's bad sub-dirt down there. And I would like to have you working on something to improve the situation so we don't have the same problem year after year. And I'm working for
R&R Development, which owns the Mallard Cove and Country View Estates. And my wife and I have been putting in a lot of time with weed killer, gopher control, mowing lawns, trimming trees, and everything out there. And I think we got it looking considerably better than it has for probably years. And
I think it
just-
looks great.
I'd just like some help with who do I go to for more help and suggestions. I'm cheap, I don't want to pay money. But I would be willing to, for fertilize, seed, we got a big mound of dirt that I understood it was ours, and someone said that it belonged to the county. I don't know what land we own, what land is on floodplain, what to do with the land that we do have. And
Yeah.
I'd like some suggestions.
Absolutely. Elwood, I think what I'll do is, we'll actually have Shane and Sarah take a look at the property out there. There are things now that are available to work on that. It'll be more like our Northridge property where we had all the water problems that was damaging these roads. I don't think these roads, and I might be speaking a little bit out of school, but from what I've seen, I don't think they were put in quite at the quality that we want our streets put in at.
That's what I've read a lot of
yeah.
people say.
Yeah, it just has, and they're just busting up out there. It's really bad. So Shane, I would say that get a hold of Elwood and you two guys kind of get going and see what we can do out there. If we have to put in some tiling on the sides of them before we put any more dollars into the streets themselves. So if you can do that.
Okay, yeah, I'll put that on my
It'd be a good
radar.
project. And of course, you guys all approved our SDP funds, and those are things that can be used on that side of the coin. Thank you very much.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate you coming in. I also have a project going on under new business, if I may. I need a letter from you guys or approval to, it's a letter of support for the Costello Property Management up on the new, which will be coming forward to you shortly, on the new Eastwoods 19 project, which is being annexed in shortly, whenever the next Board of Adjustments or Planning Commission is. Is that this week or next week?
It's this week.
This week. They'll be bringing forward an annexation of the Eastwoods 19, which it's just a little over 3 acres on the north side of Joy Nelson's property up there. And Costello wants to build, it's an extremely nice set of apartment complexes up there. And they need, because of the dollars that they're going to raise, they need the city's support that says, yes, we would love to see them in there. So I would ask you folks tonight if it's okay with you, that we write up a letter of support to the Costellos. And I would like that in a motion and a second. You can
Mayor,
ask me
can
any
I pull that
questions.
up on the
You
GIS
can,
just so
you can
know where
certainly
we're
show
talking about?
them, Ray, can you bring that up and show them where that is? Well, let's go for a motion and a second for discussion purposes while they bring the GIS up. I got a motion by Beth and a second by Mike. This will be way up on the northeast part, Ray, just on 14th Avenue.
That would be-
Yeah, and then just go a little east, east, right there. Just blow that up right in that area.
Mr. Mayor, what involvement has the planning commission had?
This is coming in front of the Planning Commission Thursday. So if the Planning Commission is negative towards that, we would not send our letter of support. But if they are actually in favor of this, and the whole drawing, I believe, is as far as the annexation of that property to the north there, and if you blow that up, there's,
Where's this at? I mean, what piece now that we got?
yeah, blow that up a little bit there, Ray. Yeah, yeah. Look,
It's a good thing you got Shane here today,
little help.
Mayor. 'cause
Right
you-
there. It's right to the east, just a
No,
little
okay.
further.
It's
right
this piece right here.
there.
This irregular.
As you know,
piece.
most of that is all called the Eastwoods 1 through, this is gonna be number 19. And there's, I believe, 3.5 acres there that's gonna be brought to the planning commission for annexation. And once the annexation happens, they of course have their plans ready to develop this with a couple of very nice large apartment complexes up there. And so what we would be doing as a city is giving them our letter of support that says, yes, we feel as though we should have that complex up in that area. They are gorgeous. I should have brought them along. I have pictures of these in my office. If you want me, I could go get them for you if you guys want to see it. Well, yeah, could you stand? That'd be great. Right on my table in there.
Hey, Steve, would
Yeah.
that then, I mean, would that necessitate some expansion to the, to 14th up there? If we did that because of the density and probably where they would have to enter and exit?
You know, I'm not sure what we're gonna do. That's really what they call a half road, but it's more
Yeah,
like a.
It is a half, it was set
yeah.
up as a half.
It's a little bit bigger than what a half street is, but it is there. I think it's sometime in the very near future, we need to expand that road and make that a full road. I know that the property owners to the north there really don't want to spend the money on curb and gutter and what have you. So that's why the half road is put in there.
This gets back to that half road deal, back to that, putting together some kind of policy where we can put that in and delay the assessment or whatever, but bring it in, when that property to the north comes in, and then there'd be an expense that we get recouped back if we're gonna invest in it
And we
up
could-
front.
We could do that if we wanted to put it in. Here's some of the pictures of complexes that they currently have out there, and this is through Costello's. This is what they are proposing to put up in that area.
Do we know what level of housing this is? Is this high-end housing in regards to apartments? Is it low-end? Is it subsidized? What is it?
This is medium family, I would call it. They are not looking for vocational students. They are looking for families to move up in this area. It's, I believe because of the letter of support, there will probably be some HUD dollars that will come in and help build these.
Like they had some playground equipment and some play areas in some of them.
Any questions?
Our recommendation then would be forwarded to whomever you're referring to here if the plan commission says it's okay.
That's correct. Your letter of support that you would allow us to write would just exactly that. If the planning commission says this is a goal, we're bringing it in, and you go ahead and you know, bring your plans in of building this project, then we'll send it in. We'll give that to them. But we have to wait till Thursday till they're done with that planning commission.
And Mayor, this process, this request is similar to the accessible spaces property up in Eastwoods that the city was asked to write a letter of support when accessible spaces be constructed. So this is the same process.
It's a good deal.
Well, I will say, I think it would facilitate expansion of that road, and that's something we're gonna have to take into consideration, and I think that the planning commission needs to look at that as well.
Yeah,
Because there'd be some costs associated with that, so.
I'm sure they will look at it. I guess I'm not exactly sure. I haven't heard from them yet how many units will be in that. You know, this is an example of what they're doing and what they'll look like. So I really couldn't say if it's gonna be 30, 40, 50, whatever, but we'll find out. And I'm sure the planning commission will definitely look at that, Bruce. In fact, look at the guy on your left and say, look at that now. Okay, he'll be there. Okay, I got a motion and a second on the floor. I would look for council action to allow me to send a letter of support. So all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Any liaison reports, or is there anything out in the public that they need to open up and bring to us? Now's a chance if you want. It's early tonight. Any liaison reports?
Thank you, guys.
Oh, come on up. Sorry about that.
I'd like to address issue 7 in the city council. My name is Michael Boswell.
Thanks, Mike. And issue, which one?
Issue 7 from the city council. The,
About the keeping of animals?
the keeping of animals.
Okay, that was just first reading is all, so no action or anything happened, but I'll go ahead and let you address it if you'd like.
You know, I had the same comments that many of you made about the keeping of a raccoon in my home, and I have that same thought. But my nephew, he took in a baby skunk and wanted to care for it, had it. It was a loving pet. And I empathize with the, you know, I really thought about that. I said, well, I don't think a skunk is a proper pet. But from a civil liberties standpoint and from an individual's rights standpoint, how is the council going to tell those people what pets you can keep and what pets you can't keep?
You know, that would, of course, be a statement for the attorney, but I think that we have to look at it in the aspect of, you know, you're talking about a civil right of these people to keep a pet like that, but we also have the responsibility for the neighbors and people in town, so they aren't attacked by a rabid skunk or a raccoon or something like
Now,
that.
everybody knows there's been stories all over the television where people have kept skunks and raccoons as pets and successfully done it. I understand the safety aspect, and I feel for this family because I knew as soon as I heard that raccoon had bit somebody, I knew the end outcome. But the point being is, if this, you know, you had the perfect ordinance on the books right now. Animal control could come in, make sure that animal is humanely taken care of, that he's not a pest to his neighbors, there's a cage, he's kept in the home. I don't see any problem with it. If you're going to keep skunks or raccoons banned, then you have to do ferrets, snakes, and eventually ducks, geese, and chickens. Because a beak of a chicken, if it's frightened, gonna break open the skin, and you get salmonella poisoning. Possibly. You know, I understand where, you know, you want to keep the whole neighborhood of Watertown safe. You know, I was born and raised here. I went to school here. I graduated from Watertown. I pay taxes here every day. So, you know, I look at this from the standpoint of my relatives that live here in Watertown, and my nephew, and those people that own that raccoon. Did Watertown, you know, from what it sounds, Watertown perpetuated that situation. Because of, you say that it wasn't on the book, you know, but you've already admitted that you were never going to give them a special permit. You admitted that.
That's correct.
So,
Yep.
my question is, where is it in your right to harbor my civil right to keep whatever pet I want to have?
And I think that's all good questions, and I appreciate your comments tonight. I'm not going to argue the fact, because it is only first reading and long past, but I think you have the right to come in 2 weeks when this comes in as second reading. In the meantime, they will have plenty of time to think about it, and I would encourage you to call these folks on the council and just visit with them and just civilly talk to them about, you know, the whole thing. And so thank you for being here tonight, and I appreciate it. And I'm sure the council appreciates the fact that you stepped up and took a stand on it.
Well, like I said, I have
Yeah.
many relatives that live in Watertown. I'm a lifelong resident of Watertown. And I felt it was, you know, even though I don't live here currently, I felt it was an obligation to me, not because of myself, because myself, I know what I would have done in this situation, which is different from what that family did.
Right.
But the point is that no matter what I did, it's not my right to tell them what to do.
Yeah. Sometimes we have to take that right and tell people what to do. But thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank
I'm going to move along. All right. I am going to go on to, I think I had liaison member reports. Are there any member reports that need to be discussed? Hearing none, I will go to number 16, executive session. First one to SDCL 125-2. I do have reason to go into executive session. It's under union negotiations and Boys and Girls Club, just different contracts that we need to discuss and talk about. So I don't expect any action to come out of this tonight, but I do need to have some discussion. So I will look for a motion and a second to go into executive session. Motion by Mike, second by John. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? We are in executive session.